when we put a man into office and we make him take this pledge, we don't believe that he's going to honor that pledge because he's afraid of the penalty for not. We believe that this man is a man of his word, a man who stands by his oaths, a man who stands by his covenants and his contracts and his pledges, a man who doesn't show a proclivity for wavering or equivocating in these situations. Trump supporter, can you really say that about Donald Trump? I mean, I made a video ranting about the man violating his pledge, and I got a lot of pushback saying that it was simply a ceremonial or a symbolic pledge. If that were the case, if that really were the case, where the pledge they wanted was simply a symbolic pledge or a ceremonial pledge that didn't hold any weight, why, in the first debate, why didn't he just leave his hand down? Why didn't he just symbolically agree with the rest of them to support each other if it was simply symbolic? See, because he knew something. See, it wasn't symbolic. He knew he had to, absolutely had to, take that, or they weren't going to give him the R by his name. That's why he made such a big deal of going out and getting cameras and having the big piece of paper with his name and his signature on it. Because he knew how it would look if he didn't take that pledge, because during that campaign process, that little 6 months, he needed you to falsely believe that he was a supporter of the Republican Party. He needed you to believe that. When, in essence, this is how his choices in his mind worked. He believed he was the best choice for president. But if he couldn't be president, he believed the next best choice was Hillary Clinton. Why? Because if they didn't give him the nomination, he was going to go run as an independent. He even said he would. And he knew that the direct effect of that would be exactly what happened in 1992, when Ross Perot pulled 20 million voters away from George Bush Sr., and then by default gave the election to Bill Clinton. And he knew he could do the exact same thing here. He never labored under the illusion that he could run as an independent and win the election. He wasn't going to get a single Democrat to come vote for him. He knew that. So in his mind, either he became president or Hillary Clinton became president. And his actions prove that. Oaths.
I thought I would start there. That was this channel. December 11th, 2016. Trump's shocking hidden agenda revealed. See, I had done that video about Bush Sr. and the death of his wife, where it was his inauguration speech where he was talking about having taken the oath of office using Washington's Bible. That's what made me remember this. I'll say this again. In his mind, one of two things had to happen. Either he became president, or Hillary Clinton became president. Either he got the nomination to run, or she became president. Now, at the time, I was laughed at for making that assertion. I was told I didn't know what I was talking about. But 15 months on, what do we see? Four foreign entanglements. 2 into Syria, based on false flag. 1 in Nigeria, with no explanation, cost the lives of 4 servicemen. 1 in Yemen. We've seen statements saying that due process is no longer required for gun seizure. We have seen the promise to label China a currency manipulator immediately walk back. We have seen a withdrawal from the TPP and now a hat-in-hand attempt to get back in it. Now think about what I said in December of 2016. The man had no intention of following through on anything he ran on. At all. Now at the end of this video, we're going to play the rest of that video out to show you where I detail and delineate all of the times in his history where he entered into covenant with people, entered into agreement with people, and then once they held up their end of the bargain, or part of it, he decided to change the terms on his end. Now this talks about Hillary Clinton supporting, Hillary Clinton financing Steve Mnuchin and George Soros running the Secretary of the Treasury and their attempt to destroy Venezuela. Here it talks about the ties between the two and how Mnuchin worked for Soros Management. See if I can get this right. Mnuchin spent 17 years working at Goldman Sachs, where he eventually made partner and created a fortune of $46 million. Mnuchin also worked at Soros Fund Management, whose founder George Soros is a key member of the shadow government disguised as a philanthropic billionaire. This was choice numero uno for Mr. Trump for the Secretary of the Treasury. This wasn't something foisted upon him. This wasn't something that he was strong-armed into doing. This was his choice. What makes Trump's decision even more bizarre, according to Electoral Commission records, Mnuchin has donated multiple times to the Democratic Party, including to Trump's former opponent, Hillary Clinton. Why would Trump select someone who clearly has ties to the elite, hedge funds, and Goldman Sachs, all of which he claims to oppose? I think now, 15 months on, when we see the complete about-face of the agenda, that we see clearly this was a game that some of us were warning about. Some of us were saying that this was the case, that you had the male version and the female version of undeniably TrUmP, basically. That's why some of us said, regardless of the weaknesses or the perceived problems, third party was your only choice. Because that was one choice, the Republican Party. That wasn't two choices. That was one. Here, it lists this issue Mr. Soros has had with destroying countries by shorting their currencies. It talks about the 92 issue in United Kingdom. And then the 97 issue in Thailand. Then later, Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong. All of the times that Mr. Mnuchin has decided to buy up currencies and then short them, and now trying to do that in smaller increments with Bitcoin. And you'd say, well, yeah, that's Soros. But strangely enough, Mr. Mnuchin exempted his buddies over at Goldman Sachs from this law that would criminalize you or me or any normal person from purchasing the petro Bitcoin or extending any amount of credit to the Venezuelan government. Criminal for us, hugely profitable for them. And in case you don't think so, opposition leaders in Venezuela, which is suffering from malnutrition and hyperinflation at the time, accused Goldman of giving President Nicolas Maduro a financial lifeline through the $2.8 billion deal. They added that the operation, which provided Goldman a yield of around 50%, would fuel hunger in Venezuela by depriving the government of foreign exchange to import food, leading the securities to be dubbed hunger bonds. That's exactly what happened. You see, I thought all this was going to change. We've seen all these forays into foreign nations costing American lives. We've now seen this about face on the TPP. We've heard statements that seize the guns first, due process second. How many different things have to happen? We've seen the walk back on the labeling China a currency manipulator. See, it's the idea. It's the idea that you listened to the man on the campaign trail and simply, based on his words, you believed him. You didn't bother to look into his past. You didn't say, okay, well, he's saying that. Let's look into his past and let's see if there's any evidence of him actually doing that. That's why I've said that this group of people calling themselves the Truth Movement is laughable. And it is. You didn't do any independent research. You didn't look into any of this for yourself. You just basically took what you were fed. It's not hard to find. It really isn't. You know, there's this idea now that it's like, well, the reason I brought this up is this is January, where already in January of this year, not even having been in office a year, was already hinting that he was going to try to get back in the TPP. And then, of course, here we see in April, the actual order goes down to Kudlow and Lighthizer to go back and see if there's a way they can get into the deal. Now, this isn't going out and renegotiating independent deals with each of the nations. This is him sending his people back to Asia to go try to, hat in hand, work their way back into this globalist deal. And Forbes has tried to, well, this is Breitbart, basically saying that, look, no, this isn't that. He said TPP is a death blow in any form. Things like Chorus, things like NAFTA. He ran on and promised he would be the guy who kept the U.S. out of these trade deals. He did say he would try to negotiate some better deals, maybe a better deal with NAFTA, but there was never any indication during the run-up to the election that he was going to say, well, you know, TPP is only bad in this sense or that sense, and if they change this, and this, then it would be fine. No. That's not what he said, because he knows if he would have said that, that would have been the end of their support for him. But anyway, Forbes. See what they're saying here in Forbes, trying to put the lipstick on this pig, is saying that U.S. should lead globalization efforts, not China. Because that's, in essence, what happened when we got out of TPP, is it opened the door, did a huge favor for China. Because then they got to go and dictate the terms of that agreement. And now that that's already been done, already been hashed out, already been signed, the U.S. has absolutely no standing and no leverage whatsoever to make any kind of a decent deal. All I'm saying in this video is this: you were lied to. He is not a conservative, he is not a populist, he's a Democrat. And he's a lying one at that. Now, you can stick with the video or not, but I just wanted to play the rest of this out so that you can hear what this channel was trying to say December 11th, 2016. 1 month. This was before the Electoral College meeting. This was before inauguration. What this channel was trying to warn everyone about. Now I have this sped up 1.5, so you can read the rest of this, listen to the rest of this out, or you can go here and look at it for yourself. It's on my page, and I will leave it here.
And promises, contracts, and pledges. So much anger from Trump supporters about these supposed faithless electors.
Sorry about that.
If it was simply symbolic. See, because he knew something. See, it wasn't symbolic. He knew he had to, absolutely had to, take that, or they weren't going to give him the R by his name. That's why he made such a big deal of going out and getting cameras and having the big piece of paper with his name and his signature on it. Because he knew how it would look if he didn't take that pledge. Because during that campaign process, that little 6 months, he needed you to falsely believe that he was a supporter of the Republican Party. He needed you to believe that. When, in essence, this is how his choices in his mind worked. He believed he was the best choice for president. But if he couldn't be president, he believed the next best choice was Hillary Clinton. Why? Because if they didn't give him the nomination, he was going to go run as an independent. He even said he would. And he knew that the direct effect of that would be exactly what happened in 1992, when Ross Perot pulled 20 million voters away from George Bush Sr., and then by default gave the election to Bill Clinton. And he knew he could do the exact same thing here. He never labored under the illusion that he could run as an independent and win the election. He wasn't going to get a single Democrat to come vote for him. He knew that. So in his mind, either he became president or Hillary Clinton became president. And his actions prove that. And this is the man that you believe to be a Republican, a man that you believe to hold to conservative values, a man that you believe is a man of his word, even though he said and wrote and signed his name that he would do one thing, and then 6 months later verbally, positively affirmed that he was reneging on that written pledge. Now, I had somebody also put in the comments about how they should be trying to get Chris Suprin on Texas verbal contract law, that a verbal oath down there, a verbal statement, is a binding contract. Well, okay, let's apply that same thing to Donald Trump. If his verbal affirmation of reneging on the oath is binding, then guess what? We can no longer say that the man held to his oath. He reneged positively on his oath. And while we're looking at this oath, we have to ask ourselves a question. Do we believe Donald Trump will do his very best to uphold this oath? If he doesn't feel like the American people are treating him fairly? If he thinks like the American government is treating him really poorly, and believes that the American people have not held up their end of the bargain by making him, president, is he going to decide that someday the Constitution doesn't work for him? And it's no longer his duty to uphold it? Let's, not really rely on our own opinions here. Let's look at what this man has to say for himself. Because I'm a big believer in that, because there's a lot of opinions out there. You're never going to hear me say on the channel, well, there are reports that, or people are telling me that. We're going to go with what we know. What we absolutely know based on what people have said. So here's out of his book. Care about the sense. To this day, if I feel a contractor is overcharging me, I'll pick up the phone, even if it's only for 5 or 10 grand, and I'll complain. People say to me, what are you bothering for over a few bucks? My answer is that the day I can't pick up the telephone and make a 25-cent call to save $10,000 is the day I'm going to close up shop. Now that seems like, on its face, is a good business principle to do everything you can to save money, but what he's really talking about here is covenant breaking. He's talking about entering into covenant with people. To this day, if I feel a contractor is overcharging me, if you're going to have to be into any contract with a contractor, his charges are going to be upfront. You're going to know what they are before you sign the deal. So when you make the deal and he says, I'm going to charge you X dollars to do X work, and you enter into that covenant, that's a binding covenant. What he's saying here is, when the other person, goes so far into it and gets committed to it, why not give them a call and see if you can get a few bucks knocked off the top? It's only a 25-cent phone call, why not try? But that's what this is. This is covenant breaking. And Trump supporters are like, well, no, that's not what he means. Well, let's see. If this is really what it means, then I shouldn't be able to find evidence of that in his past. Let's look here. Donald Trump paid contractors on his Taj Mahal casino just 33 cents on the dollar after the casino failed with a promise of 50 cents later for the business that survived long enough. You can read through that, and you can Google it yourself. I could read you the entire deals, but basically that's exactly what he did. 50 cents on the dollar here to Eric Silverstein. Molded Fiberglass had to write off $2 million of a $3 million bill. $95,000 lawsuit for missed legal fees.
I'll put the link
Virginia
to
lawyers
this in the
Donald Trump failing to
description.
pay their firm. Florida chandelier business paid him 50% down and said he shouldn't have to pay him anymore. Doral Resort was forced into foreclosure because he didn't pay a Florida paint contractor. Freehold Music Center, 8 baby grand pianos. Sorry, Yamaha, full-size Yamaha grand pianos. $100,000. Got forced into taking 70 cents on the dollar. You can go on and on and on and on and on. There's a whole list here. And I covered this in a rant that I did before about this signed pledge. And then when it didn't work, he took it back. It didn't work. He was done. He only needed you to believe that he was somebody who was going to support the Republican Party up until a certain point. And after that, when that pledge no longer worked for him, that oath, he just decided to throw it away because that's how he works. That's how he works. That's how the man operates. It's been his modus operandi his whole life. This woman dared to challenge the man with his own quotes and now lives under armed guard. This woman was one of the most popular conservative news anchors out there, and she questioned your leader, and now she lives under armed guard. I've seen so many quotes, so many threats on my page for even questioning the man. People saying that he is the reincarnation of King Cyrus from the Bible, that God has his hand on him. God has his hand on him. I refrain from reading from the Bible, but I just can't anymore because this man embodies everything that we were warned about. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. Being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable and merciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. That's this man. If anybody wants to take umbrage with any of those characterizations of this man, if you think that I have said that he's a fornicator and that he's not, or that he's full of envy and he's not, if you believe anything here that I just listed doesn't or cannot be applied in a provable way to Donald Trump, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it, folks. This thing, this art of the deal, it stuck in my head for so long about there was this other time when a leader altered a deal after certain things changed that weren't convenient for him, and I couldn't remember what it was. And then in the middle of the night, it dawned on me who it was and what it was. And I'll let this man speak in his own words.
During the deal, pray I don't offer it any further.
Have a good night, folks.
Anyway, like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.